Hi, this is Shane Starr on a cool summer morning in South Orange County, California. Today I am working on my first of 9 videos on activating your inner Enneagram. What we're doing is along the same lines as our last series, where we're not focusing on, in Enneagram terms, your own type or the opposite type, but accessible types from your own type. And the way that looks like is either a wing or an arrow. The person who popularized the ancient Enneagram, Dr. Ichazo from Chile, he really, I wouldn't say created, but really developed the idea of wings and arrows of integration. And the way it works is you have your core type, and the numbers right next to you on the Enneagram are called your wings. And some people have more or less balanced wings, but most people gravitate towards one or the other. What this does, to use an expression introduced to me by Dr. Tom LaHue, who's also an Enneagram specialist, when we lean on one wing too much, like a plane, we get out of balance, and that's not a good thing. So the way to get back in balance is to work on that other wing and try to bring out the best of those characteristics of that neglected Enneagram to bring you into focus. Also, if you are another type that has an arrow of integration, that will work too. That's what, as we grow in health, a number starts looking like another number. So in fact, the way this works is that although we're focusing on Enneagram 1 today, we are not looking at ones per se. We're looking at other types that will improve themselves by leaning into one more. That means we're looking at Enneagram 9s with a weak 1 wing, Enneagram 2 with a weak 1 wing, and Enneagram 4s who want to go into their arrow of integration and be more healthy versions of themselves by integrating characteristics of Enneagram 1 in their psyche. So the way this series is going to look, we're going to start with Enneagram 1 a little bit, then we're going to jump into our philosophical author, then the philosophical masterpiece that I've chosen to go with this, and we'll try to get the core idea out of it, see what new perspectives come out of this correlation, and last but most importantly, we're going to look at ways we can practically introduce more of the positive characteristics of our featured Enneagram into our lives. Okay, so let's start with Enneagram 1. I have this book by Riso Hudson, Personality Types, and I think he's got a good right off the bat description of what healthy Enneagram types look like. So here's his description, not my own, but if I didn't agree with it, I wouldn't be reading it. This is what the type 1 looks like in health. And this is what our viewers who are either 9s, 2s, 4s, or just interested in gaining some of the characteristics of a healthy 1 should aim for. So healthy 1s are conscientious with strong personal convictions. They have an intense sense of right and wrong, personal and moral values, wish to be rational, reasonable, and self-disciplined, mature and moderate in all things, highly principled, striving to be fair, objective, and ethical. Truth and justice are primary values. Sense of responsibility, personal integrity, and of having a higher purpose often make them teachers and witnesses to the truth. At their best, they become extraordinarily wise and discerning. By accepting what is, they become transcendentally realistic, knowing the best thing to do in all circumstances. Healthy ones are humane, inspiring, and hopeful. And that is what we have for a healthy one. Okay, so we're going to combine those characteristics with a great author and one of his greatest works. This is Immanuel Kant, one of, if not perhaps, the most important modern philosopher. And he's called Prussian. He spoke mostly German. His dates are 1724 to 1804. I would say that the biggest claim to fame for Kant was he sits in the middle between the skeptics on one hand, like the Scottish philosopher David Hume, really a predecessor of Nietzsche, I think, but you have the extreme skeptics that say we really can't know anything, and then we have the extreme idealists or rationalists, epitomized by Hegel, who came after Kant. But these are people who believe so much in the power of reason that they believe reason's actually an attribute of the divine itself. And long story short, the idealists thought we can know everything. So Kant, and I think in so many ways rightly so, Kant takes the middle ground, which, think of politics. The middle ground, even though it's the most sensible, it's never the most popular. You're going to get attacked by both sides. And unfortunately, that's what happens with Kant. Kant says, to know the truth, to know important things like knowing God is one of the things with Kant. Beauty, reason, morals. He thinks we can know that they are, that something is there, something exists. But the problem is that we can't get around our senses to get in the thing itself. We can know something's there, but we don't know what it is. It's like seeing someone behind a curtain. We can hear them or we can sense that someone's there, but we can never get behind to actually experience it in immediacy. And Hume said, we can't even know anything behind the curtain. We don't even know if there's a curtain. We don't even know if we are. Hegel would say, well, not only can we see behind the curtain, but we can see everything eventually, time permitting, in history. We could see it all. Kant takes the middle ground. Now, where this comes out in his one of his master works, it's not the Critique of Pure Reason or Critique of Judgment. That was the first and third one. But in his second great masterpiece, it's titled The Critique of Practical Reason. And that's where he explores the foundations of morality and human freedom. What Kant says is he argues that the moral law is a universal a priori. That means it's almost before reason, before logic. It's a given. It's there. It's think of it as a premise, but a very powerful one, important one. It is a universal principle that guides our actions, and that true freedom lies in acting in accordance with this moral law. It's free, governed by reason. That was loud. Okay, so this work is most known for the categorical imperative. That is, aiming for happiness or self-interest doesn't work in morals. Kant says that one should act only according to principles that one could will or wish to be a universal law. Again, Kant dictates in the Critique of Practical Reason that one should act accordingly to principles only such that one could wish them as a universal law. So don't do anything that you wouldn't wish to be a universal law. Okay? The takeaway quote, I think he has many here about the starry skies above and the moral heart within, which are beautiful quotes. But for our purposes, I think the best takeaway quote is Kant's focus on duty. Duty is a principle that guides his entire morality, and incidentally, it also goes with Enneagram 1, which we're working on today. So his takeaway quote is, acting from duty is set apart completely from all other ways of activity, such that we are taken to act in accordance with the universal law as opposed to springing from mere inclination. So really he's setting reason and moral duty on the one end, and simple, you could almost say extroverted sensing or introverted feeling desire on the other end. He thinks of just pure desire as more animalistic, and duty he sets apart from that. And he thinks duty is the principle which makes rational beings different from animals. And I don't see how in practical terms one can really argue that. That's what makes humans different. We can act against our nature in the name of moral virtue if we wish, and that's freedom. That's where freedom comes, in acting in accordance with our duty, which isn't always easy, but it's always good. All right, so what new perspectives can we bring to Enneagram 1 from this? I mean, it's almost a one-to-one correlation. There's almost not anything new, but I would say the real thought on integrity, duty, really the value and desire to be good. You know, just the wish to be good. How many people actually wish to be good? How many people wish to be honest, even honest with themselves? You know, to take another great author, the greatest of all time, I think, Shakespeare, he has a famous line in Hamlet about, "To thine own self be true," and everyone misinterprets that as being, do what you really want, to your own heart, do what you want to do. That isn't what Shakespeare meant in that character's line at all. What he meant is be honest to yourself. If you could look in the mirror and be honest to yourself, you're not going to be a liar to anyone else. And deception so much in life begins with self-deception, and it grows. And Enneagram 1 is the epitome of being the opposite of that. It starts with honesty, it starts with integrity, it starts with a desire to actually want to be good. That's the new perspective on Enneagram 1 that Kant can bring us. All right, so what, let's finish after that unpleasant interruption right now. What are some tips now? So we've gotten the Enneagram 1, we've gotten Kant, we've kind of brought them together. What are some tips to really activate your inner Enneagram 1? I would say there's 5 main categories. I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget them. Number 1, embrace a strong sense of purpose. I would say in socionic circles, people most associate Enneagram 1 with TE, extroverted thinking. In MBTI circles, people most often associate Enneagram 1 with introverted sensing. In this perspective, with all due respect to both of those perspectives, I think there's truth in both. I would say think of introverted feeling here a little bit. Thus the wing from 4 to 1 also, but the arrow rather from 4 to 1. Embrace a strong sense of purpose. Identify your core values, aspects that you want to live by, aspects that you want to improve about yourself. Align your actions with your values. Actually practice. It's one thing to just wish, I wish I was better, like in school. I want to do better in school. What does that mean specifically? It means specifically I'm going to raise my grade in history from a 76 to a 90 or above by studying at least 1 hour a day after dinner And once a week, I'm going to connect with someone else in the class who's doing better than me, and we can brainstorm on tests and quizzes and homework in order to do better. That's what I mean by actually practicing your actions. That's so much different than just a vague wish to do better or be better. Those are the kind of dreams that just go in and out of your head and you don't really think about them, and they go away, and then, like so many with New Year's resolutions, they just fall apart and nothing happens. So number one for activating your inner Enneagram 1 is embrace that strong sense of purpose by identifying your core values, identifying aspects of your life you want to improve, and then actually having a specific plan to practice those things. Work towards the greater good, starting with the greater good in your own life. Number 2, develop a disciplined and organized approach. You know, we sort of segued into that by saying practice in the first point, but you want to establish order and organization in your life through routines and systems that'll keep you moving forward with growth and efficiency. And again, this is all about SI and MBTI, all about TE and socionics. This starts with the spark or the fire of FI, which leads to good SI and good TE in Enneagram 1, if you're looking at it that way. But build those routines and systems that will help keep you on the right path moving forward. Number 3, produce, or rather build productive habits. I would say practice integrity and responsibility. I do that through prayer. If you're not religious, do that through meditation or focus. You know, honor your word, be reliable. Don't have this separation that so many people have of what they believe and feel in their heart and then how they act in the real world. Those two should be a synthesis. You should always live according to your beliefs. You know, don't be like a criminal wearing a crucifix. You know, it's like, if you really believe that, then stop being bad. If you really believe in being bad, then stop wearing the crucifix. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Be honest, ethical, accountable. And that takes practice too. It just doesn't happen naturally. You know, it takes work. It takes, you know, if you're religious, it takes constant prayer. If you're not religious, it takes something that will anchor you into a system of values that are strong enough to motivate you to act on it and consistently act on it. Number 4, cultivate your desire for improvement. Focus on making things right in your life that aren't right already. That means attention to detail, like my example in school. You know, focus on specifics. I can't say enough how important a focus on specifics are, whether it's improving a relationship, improving your diet, improving your work performance. You want to focus on specific, measurable, achievable goals, one at a time. We're going to have a video on this later after the series, but one of my favorite podcasters, Rusted Typology, you know, he joked about and ridiculed people who have the Jordan Peterson belief that making your bed is important. And I respectfully disagree with Rusted on this, because I believe that making your bed is important. Why? Because it's task completion. It's something easy that everyone can do, and now you can check a box off your list. You've completed a task. Once you've completed one task, it's a lot easier to complete the more difficult things that'll come during the day than it is to go from 0 to 60 once you get to work. You know, I'd rather get to work knowing I've ticked 5 things off my list of things to do already. Bam. So now I'm ready for whatever the day's going to bring to me. The same way in activating your inner Enneagram 1, you have to be a proactive problem solver, have that attention to detail, and it all starts with simple task completion. Okay, last but not least, number 5, be mindful of potential challenges. Don't overcorrect like a new convert. You know, you get people who quit alcohol or drugs, and now they're preaching at everyone else that drinking's bad and you better not have that, this is poison, this is evil. Or a new religious convert telling people the same thing, you're living in sin, and everyone's like, dude, just last week you were sitting there doing all kinds of stuff, now you're preaching at us, get out of here. You don't want to be like that. Focus on yourself first, then you can gently help others improve. And that means being flexible and adaptable. Practice self-care. We don't want to get into problems with Enneagram 1s, but I would say if you stay in your lane and focus on self-improvement, the rest comes easy. If you are focusing on other people, that's a problem. So like I said, last but not least, be mindful of potential challenges in your own attitude. Don't start working on correcting others. All of us have plenty of work to do on ourselves before we worry about others. As Jesus said, take the plank out of your own eye before you look for the speck in your brother or sister's eye. All right, that's all I have for today, you guys. Hope you enjoyed Enneagram 1. Let me know in the comments. Have a good one. Peace out.